All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone, hour number 2 of tonight's show, and we're coming to you from the Broadcast Center and Studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, and on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. Once again, if you'd like to send me an email, it's very simple, xzone@classic1220.ca. And if you have a question, if you have a special guest that you'd like us to come on, bring on to the show, if you have any questions, or if you're having a problem in any of the areas that we deal with, the paranormal, ghost hauntings, UFOs, Bigfoot, werewolves, whatever, and you need somebody to help you, all you need to do is send me that email, and we will do our very best to connect you to people that we have had on the show over the years and that we consider to be credible, and we will get them to contact you, because nobody deserves to be afraid of anything. And some of the topics that we do discuss here on the X Zone are rather, well, how did one lady put it to me? Rob, you talk about weird and scary stuff, but I love listening to your show. All right, so there you go. X Zone Nation, my guest this hour is a good friend, OBERON ZELL, and he is the co-founder of Church of All Worlds. He is a grand wizard. He is a teacher. He is the only person I know that owned a live unicorn. And he's also the author of a new book that's out there called History's Mysteries, Turning Points That Changed Our World. Atlantis, Lemuria, the Garden of Eden, are these merely myths and fantasies of paradise lost, or actual places that have somehow disappeared from the face of the earth? And what of the famous legends of a great and universal deluge that are found in so many ancient cultures? Could there really been a vast global and disaster that drowned the entire populations and submerged settlements throughout the world? Well, these are just some of the answers that are found in this book. The book is entitled History's Mysteries, and my guest is OBERON ZELL. He's a renowned wizard and elder in the global magical community. And he publishes the Green Egg magazine for over 50 years. He's the author of Grimoire for the Apprentice Wizard, going back to 2004, and many other books. Joining me now is the one and only wizard himself, OBERON ZELL. And OBERON, welcome back to the X Zone, and congratulations on your book, sir.
Thank you, Rob. It's always good to be here with you, and thank you for writing the foreword for it.
You know, it was my pleasure, because having had you on the show a number of times and speaking to you both on air and off air, you every time I talk to you, I think I'm getting a question, but when I get the answer to the question, there's more questions that arise out of that very simple answer. And you know, you're the real McCoy. You're the real man behind the curtain. You are, to me, the Wizard of Oz.
Well, it is handy that happens to be my initials.
That's right, Oz. OBERON ZELL.
Yeah.
Coincidence? I think not. So, Ron.
Well, it wasn't intentional. It just turned out that way, you know?
Yeah, well, I think things happen for a reason in life. And I must tell you, 34 years when I started this show, I had a totally different outlook on life.
I'll bet.
You know, it was black and white. Good, evil.
Oh.
In, out, up, down. But I'm telling you, over 34 years and over 5,000 individual guests, I have to say, what if?
What if?
Yeah. Is this reality that we live in, or is it a dream? You know, some people talk now about the matrix that we live in, that this is not reality. People talk about angels. People talk about souls on the other side. People talk about near-death experiences where they've gone to heaven and returned. People talk about UFOs, extraterrestrials. And when you have all these people talking about all these different topics, Oberon, they can't all be wrong.
Well, that's the trick, isn't it? How do you sort that out, you know? You just got to hear all the stories and make your own judgment about, you know, what to accept or not accept. But I do think that the world is a lot stranger than we can possibly imagine, which is something Einstein said. Or to quote Shakespeare, there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamed of in our philosophies.
Oh, I agree with that 150%, my friend. For the listeners who may not have heard you the last time you were with us here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, tell us a little bit about Oberon ZELL. Who is Oberon, and what brought him into the world of magic and the world of teaching wizards how to be wizards?
Well, you know, there are so many ways of telling that story because it's such a big story, and there's so many places to begin.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it all really began with my death of my previous life, in which I was my maternal grandfather. And a year after a fatal heart attack, I awakened in the same room that I had died in, and it had been converted into a nursery for the new baby that was me. And growing up as a child, I was constantly being told, "Oh, you sound just like your grandfather." But that's just what your grandfather used to say. "Oh, you're so much like your grandfather." I heard that all the time, you know, and I really didn't have any concept of any of this stuff. There was nothing in the world of my experience as a child growing up that accounted for any of this stuff. So I just took it for granted, and I didn't really think of myself as particularly exceptional. But I was always drawn to myths and legends and fairy tales and weird stuff, you know. So my first reading as a child was children's versions of the Greek myths. And I was introduced to the stories and the gods and goddesses long before I was old enough to go off to Sunday school and learn the Christian mythology. And I spent much of my time as a child in the woods, hanging out with the animals and just getting to know them. I would just sit at the base of a tree and let the deer come and graze right up next to me, or sit up in the branches and watch the birds make their nests and raise their babies. And it was all just like that. And as I acquired more of the stories, read the myths and the legends of many different peoples, got into reading fantasy and science fiction, you know, I gravitated into a larger concept of what was possible and what perhaps I might look into. And so many of the stories were full of magic. There were wizards and sorcerers and people who had mystical and magical powers, you know, and superheroes and mutants and all that. And so the idea of all that stuff was deeply imprinted on me, and without any boundaries. There was no sense of me in what can't be done, only in the infinite possibilities. So I pursued that, and that led me into raising unicorns. It led me into homesteading up in the mountains, in the wilderness. It led me into magic and wizardry. And there's a lot of that story, but I think that that's enough of an introduction.
What has been your number one accomplishment in your life so far?
Oh, boy. Well, I think perhaps the number one accomplishment is probably that I am the one who founded what has now become one of the major religious movements in the world, which is modern paganism. I was the first person to claim that identity as a religious identity, from a handful of people to a huge movement. But it included so much more than that. I'm very proud of the church that I created in that process, the Church of All Worlds, which was the first pagan church to be legally incorporated. I'm very proud of the school that I founded, the Grey School of Wizardry, which is certainly the foremost school. I'm very proud of the magazine, Green Egg, that I published for over 50 years, the longest running magical publication ever. And certainly raising live unicorns was quite an adventure. So, there's a lot. I think I have made a dent in the dominant paradigm, and that was my objective all along.
Well, I believe you succeeded. And speaking about unicorns, everyone thinks that a unicorn is a horse. And yet, your unicorns weren't horses.
Well, no, and that's such a weird thing. We struggled with that one because in all of the traditional images of unicorns, in all of the old tapestries and woodcuts and references, they are never depicted as horses. They're always small animals that can come and lay their head in a maiden's lap. They always have cloven hooves and a bearded chin, and they are not horses at all. They are more of affinity with goats, the ones we're familiar with, although in ancient times, there have been unicorns at different times and places that have been different animals. The very earliest ones from the Bronze Age, 4,000 years ago, were bull unicorns, taurine, as we call them. And the Oriental unicorn is deer, like it's a chervine with a single branching horn. And there have been antelopine unicorns and Aryan unicorns and so on, but there have never been horse unicorns. The equine unicorn is purely a modern fantasy, it has nothing to do with the history or the reality of actual unicorns.
So the myth of a horse being a unicorn is strictly a myth.
Yeah, well, it isn't even really, I don't think it qualifies as a myth even, because it's just a modern artistic image where little girls who like to draw horses drew them with wings and horns and stuff like that. It's just purely a contemporary art convention. It has nothing to do with the history of the actual creatures.
Oberon, please stand by. You and I have to take our first break. In Exonation, my guest this hour is Oberon ZELL. He is the author of History's Mysteries, Turning Points That Changed Our World. And when we come back, we're going to tell you how you can get your very own copy of History's Mysteries. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca.
Cold late nights so long ago, when I was not so strong, Pretty man came to me, never seen eyes so blue, I could not run away, it seemed. We'd seen each other in a dream. Seemed like he knew me, he looked right through me,
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. My guest this hour is Oberon ZELL, and he's the author of History's Mysteries, Turning Points That Changed Our World. And it's available on Amazon.com. And if you'd like more information about Oberon and see all the great things that this gentleman has done, is doing, and will continue to do, visit his website, OberonZELL.com. Oberon, over the years I've had the pleasure of talking to many authors, and there's always one chapter in their book that they love more than any other chapter. What is your favorite chapter in your book?
That's quite a question, isn't it? Well, one of the first things that I found most intriguing in studying the histories mysteries that turned out to be this book is a fairly obscure event that happened in 46 BCE, where the whole world was changed by the simple fact that the wind did not blow on that fateful day. And that was a day in which it's all recorded in some detail in the third book of Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars, 56 BCE. And he describes in there how he met a fleet of incredibly magnificent ships from the Celtic Carthaginian alliance, 220 great sailing ships with leather sails and a swan prow, like the Viking longships had a dragon prow, and these had a prow of a swan. There's 220 of these ships that had been sailing across the Atlantic for apparently, possibly centuries. And they met them, and they would have been completely overwhelmed. The Romans were way outclassed, except these were sailing ships, and there was no wind. And these great ships, their sails hung slack, and the Romans rode up and threw grappling hooks aboard and killed everybody and burned all the ships. But the interesting thing is the ship's sails, they point out, were made of leather. And leather catches the salt spray from the sea, and when it dries, the salt crystals are, gleam in the light, blindingly. And we hear stories of these crystal ships from legends of the Elves, and we hear them from the Native Americans along the eastern coast of these great birds, these great white birds that sailed across the sea. And we've lost this complete thing. But had there been a wind on that day, one simple little thing, right at the English Channel is where this occurred, in June of 56 BCE, right at the English Channel. Had there been a wind, Julius Caesar would have been defeated. That would have been the end of it. There would have been no Roman Empire. It would not have happened. There would have been no conquest of the Romans of the world. There would have been no conquest of Jerusalem. Therefore, there would have been no oppression of the Jewish people by the Romans. There would have been no rise of Christianity. There would have been no diaspora. There would have been none of all of Western history. The whole, Christian church and the Inquisition and the conquistadors and everything that has happened over the past 2,000 years would have been completely different. And I just find that fascinating. And so I have a whole chapter on that, chapter 32. It's called Crystal Ships. And that has got to be one of my favorites.
When I was reading your book, my favorite chapter, one of them, because it's hard to say which is my favorite because I love the entire book, is chapter 33, Magical Artifacts. And one of the discussions we used to have on the X Zone a number of years ago was about the Spear of Destiny.
Oh, yes. Right.
And its appearance and disappearance throughout history. Why don't you tell our listeners about the magical artifacts? And there's also, of course, everybody who reads anything about the knights and King Arthur. There's that Excalibur, that sword.
That's right, the magic sword, and of course the Holy Grail's in there, and King Solomon's ring, and other things. Well, it's really fascinating how much of the stories are filled with magical treasures that are alleged to have actually existed in reality. And the Spear of Destiny is a great example of that. That was supposedly the spear that a Roman centurion supposedly pierced Jesus' side at the crucifixion.
Right.
And so it attained a certain legendary quality to it. And so there was an interest in claiming this. There was very much of an interest in the rise of Christianity, particularly motivated by Helena, who became Saint Helena, who was the mother of Constantine, who became the emperor of Rome and the first Christian emperor, to claim artifacts. One of the more famous ones was pieces of the true cross, and it is said that there was enough pieces of the true cross being sold and traded throughout Europe to have built an entire cathedral. But one of these was definitely this magical spear, the Spear of Destiny it was called. And the legend grew that whoever possessed it would rule the world. That was the idea.
Right.
So So a lot of people wanted it. It was said to have not only gotten to Constantine, but Emperor Theodosius and Alaric the Goth, who sacked Rome, and Attila the Hun, and various other significant people. It was a big deal in the 40s or the 30s for Hitler. Hitler really wanted it very badly, and he sent out crews. This is what the Indiana Jones movies were all about. He sent out crews around the world to try to find some of these legendary artifacts, like the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant,
right.
Things like that, But the interesting thing is that the Spear of Destiny was claimed by Charlemagne, and after serving the Holy Roman Emperors, the spear was put on display in the Hofburg Palace in Austria. And so that became quite an issue. Hitler claimed it. He seized it from the museum and claimed it as his own. And after his defeat, the Holy Lance, the Spear of Destiny, was returned to the Hofburg Museum, where it resides today, and you can go see it. It's still there.
Obvious.
It's very interesting. It's one of the few artifacts that we actually can go and take a look at.
Obviously, it didn't work for Hitler because, as we all know, he didn't win. He lost.
I know. It doesn't. Some things don't always turn out the way you think they are.
Yeah.
Something
else I wanted to ask you about when you were on last time, and unfortunately we ran out of time, was there seems to be a parallel between Greek mythology and Christianity. For example, Zeus is the king, and then you've got God on the side of Christianity. Hercules, the son of Zeus, Jesus, the son of God. Helena on one side, the Virgin Mary on the other. And then you've got the demigods, everything happening atop Mount Olympus, everything happening with Christianity in heaven. Who stole what from who, in your opinion?
Well, that is a very interesting parallel. I talk about that in one of the chapters in the book, the story of the war in heaven, where there was an account given in several different cultures of this battle among the gods, in which it was like a rebellion, and the one company of gods was defeated by the next one. In the Greek mythology, it was the clash of the Titans,
right,
as in the movie. And in the Christian mythology, it was the war in heaven between the angels and the demons who were cast down. There's a lot of parallels there, and I think one of the interesting things is go back to the Garden of Eden mythos, where the serpent is presented, Lucifer, as the tempter who tries to get the people to rebel against God and eat from the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Well, the Greeks had a similar story of their character named Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods and tried to help humanity, and in defiance of Zeus, the All-Father. But the interesting thing is that the Greeks regarded Prometheus as a hero, and the Jews regarded Lucifer as a villain for the same thing, basically, for trying to champion humanity. And but the interesting factor is that the Hebrews were sheep people. They were sheep herders, and that was their totem animal. They identified as the people of the sheep, and their thing was all about shepherds and shepherds leading their flocks.
Right.
And we all know where the shepherd eventually leaves the sheep. I mean, if they're lucky, they just get fleeced. But the Greeks were goat people, and that was their totem, and they had a whole different attitude about that sort of stuff. They admired the independence and the refusal of goats to be herded, and all that. So I think one of the aspects of culture that I touch on briefly is the way different peoples and cultures have identified with the animals that have been their primary livestock. For example, in Crete, it was the honeybee. So we see these reflected in many ways. In ancient Egypt and Sumeria, it was cattle. They were cattle people. And when you're raising cattle, you castrate most of the males. So these cultures were really big on having eunuchs. They were always castrating people. There's so much of that.
But why? Why were they castrating men? Or didn't they need to go forth and multiply?
Well, they see, the thing is that one guy could do it all, and so the idea was harems. This is the way it is with the animals that are there. So, you have one bull, and he services all the cows, and they all have babies. You don't need more than one bull. And in these cultures, you would have one king, and he would have a big harem. He would collect all the women of the village, and keep them to himself, and the rest of the men didn't get any. They would be sent off to war, to fight for it, but they certainly weren't getting laid.
No.
And that was kind of the plan, That was how it worked.
Talk about overworking yourself. Wow. Not tonight, honey. I've got a headache.
Right, I would think. What did these guys have? I mean, Solomon was supposed to have had 1,000 wives and an even larger number of concubines. It's like, what did he do with them all? I mean,
wow.
Really.
Hats off to him if he was able to accomplish all that. But we've got to take our next commercial break, so please stand by. Oberon ZELL is our special guest. His website is oberonzell.com, and he's the author of a brand new book that's out. It's available at Amazon, History's Mysteries, Turning Points That Changed Our World. And Oberon and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. You're listening to us in your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streaming around the world on classic1220.ca.
It's magic, never believe it's not so. It's magic, never believe it's not so.
Do you believe in magic in a young girl's heart? How the music can free her whenever it starts, and it's magic. If the music is groovy, it makes you feel happy like an old-time movie. I'll tell you about the magic and it'll free your soul, but it's like trying to tell a stranger about a rock and roll. You believe in magic?
I believe in magic. That's because I'm the magic man here at Classic 1220. This is the X Zone, and we come to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight on Classic 1220 and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. Oberon ZELL is our special guest, and his website is oberonzell.com, and his new book, History's Mysteries, is available on amazon.com. Oberon, when we look at mythology, there seems to be a crossover or a connection with animals and humans, like the Minotaur and so on. Is it possible that what we are learning about with today's science and the different explanations we have for many of the wondrous things that those in past observed, but they didn't have the concept of what it could be except something magical, something mythical? For example, is it possible that when we have the different creatures in mythology, that what we're looking at is not only the fact that we have half human and half animal, but are we witnessing DNA experimentation on a very, very early presence being introduced to this planet by someone else?
Well, that's a fascinating speculation. It's been a real question as to where we came from, because we are clearly related in the inheritance of the other great apes, of which technically we are part of.
Right.
And yet there are some crucial differences, and we have to question where they came from. Were our genes messed with in the past by some, alien experimenters, or perhaps time travelers even? I find the idea of time travelers to be a more attractive one than the idea of aliens when we deal with a lot of the UFO encounter experiences. They don't appear to be that extraterrestrial. I mean, they're humanoid enough to look like they could be our distant descendants, as opposed to looking like praying mantises or octopuses or something.
And that's what
But,
we hear a lot of these days are
yeah.
the praying mantis ETs. And I don't know. I don't buy into that one. But, there are those that you can say, possibly. Is it possible? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Oberon.
No. It's a fascinating question, and it's one that's always fun to think of. But I think as the more we've done genetic studies, the less we find that is compatible across those boundaries. I'm afraid,
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose gene splicing and experimentation that we're beginning to embark upon, might lead us to some, things that may seem impossible now, and I can't see it completely impossible that could not have been done by more advanced experimenters. Although who they would be and where they would come from, I don't know, because this is a big problem with the whole UFO encounter thing. I mean, we've got all these people reporting encounters with aliens,
Mm-hmm.
and we're looking for them out there. We've got our telescopes and our radio telescopes, and we're doing this most avid search we can from where they are, but we're not finding anybody out there. So, as far as we've been looking, and we're seeing planets all over the place out there. Every star has planets, but so far we haven't encountered any signs whatsoever of habitation of any life, let alone highly advanced technological species capable of star travel. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I really don't.
This is where I think time travel comes in, or multiple universes, multiple dimensions, where this can actually theoretically be possible.
Yeah, I think so. Consider that if anybody ever in any distant future, maybe a million years from now, maybe more, develops time travel, which is not entirely technically impossible. There have been several proposals. The nature of the universe, as we understand it, the mathematics does not actually prohibit time travel. We just don't have the technology at this point. But eventually, I can't imagine that we won't. And once that happens, time travelers will have access to all of history and could very well be showing up in our backyards. That to me makes more sense than anything else. And of course, the alternate dimensions idea is another one. The idea is that every time a decision is made or some significant event happens, that the timeline splits and you get two parallel universes, like in Back to the Future. So, there's a lot of interesting speculations. Again, there's more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophies, to quote Shakespeare in Hamlet,
Yes. What is your opinion, or what is your take on the sightings of Sasquatch? Like the aliens, once there is no proof that they actually do exist.
That's a fascinating thing, too. I went to a Bigfoot festival not too long ago,
Mm-hmm.
and we were put up at the lodge where the other guests at the lodge were the people who did these investigations for these TV shows,
Right.
in search of Bigfoot stuff. And we had quite the conversation with them. One thing we learned that was somewhat surprising was that they are not allowed to actually find anything, because that would be the end of the show. So if they do find anything, it would be absolutely suppressed, and they stated this very clearly. But personally, there are two types of Bigfoot. There's the ones that appear to be a natural creature, like gorillas in Africa or something that
Right.
we just haven't been able to nail down. But the others get almost supernatural. They appear and disappear. They seem to be associated with UFOs and stuff. And the ones that appear to be a natural creature are mostly found in the Pacific Northwest, Canada, the taiga. The other kinds show up in the southeast and are very weird.
Yeah.
So I think we may be dealing with two different things, phenomena. But I personally feel no reason whatsoever why the Pacific Northwest Bigfoot couldn't be a real creature. To me, they look exactly like an extinct type of hominid that we call the Paranthropus, which was much bigger than the early humans of the time, and believed to have gone extinct. But the territory that they are reported from is the taiga, which is the largest terrestrial biome on the planet. It's vast. A vast area surrounds the North Pole above the temperate zone, all of Canada, Siberia, Northern Asia, all of that vast area there. And that's a reasonable habitat. It's not very well inhabited by people. and it would be very easy for a large animal to stay inconspicuous. Consider that the entire world population of gorillas, mountain gorillas or bonobos,
Right.
their entire habitat is just a few square miles in Africa, but they were only discovered, like a little over a century ago. So,
Well, When you said that
There you
the television producers said that if they found a Bigfoot, the information would be suppressed because that would be
Yes.
the end of the show, so to speak.
right.
If that is the fact with the Bigfoot, then why, it's quite possible that the UFO community, as well as the ghost community and all the other paranormal communities, are suppressing the fact that they have established and found evidence in order to keep the conspiracy, the mystery, the magic alive.
Well, and many people think that. Many people feel that the UFO phenomenon is being suppressed. That we have captured UFOs and alien bodies that are hidden in Area 51 and stuff. There's a whole mythology around that. Because if we did have it, if we did capture a crashed UFO or aliens and stuff, we certainly, the government would jump right on it and would hide them, and it would not make them available. That's what the whole Men in Black movies were all about,
Right. And
So-
years ago, I had the opportunity of speaking to Arden Elby, who at the time was head of NASA. And I asked him point blank, what would happen if NASA came across unequivocal proof that UFOs were real? Would you suppress the information? He said, Rob, that's the last thing we would do. We would call a press conference and put everything on the table because it would guarantee us more funding.
Good point.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
And
Yeah, I wondered about that. I expect that alien artifacts would be likely to be found on the moon or Mars, because if anybody was visiting, they would be setting up bases where they could observe,
Right.
So, are we going to find them?
Have you done any research about the Egyptian artifacts that have been found in the Grand Canyon?
No, I'm not aware of that. That's something new to me.
Oh.
Egyptian artifacts in Grand Canyon. Tell me more.
All right. We've had a couple of guests on, I can't remember their names right off the top of my head, who had done research, and that there have actually been artifacts from Egypt that have been found in the Grand Canyon. And what I will do is I will find the information in our archives and I will send it to you.
Please do. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, well, there's also historical proof that the sailors from the Middle East, sailed to North America and traded with the Indians, the Native Americans and Canadians for bronze. Is it bronze or tin? I forget. I get those two mixed up.
It was tin from Cornwall. I think from this country it would have been copper, not bronze.
Right, copper. Yes.
Bronze is made of copper and tin.
Yeah.
But the Great Lakes were a great source of copper.
Mm-hmm. So
that's what I was talking about with the crystal ships. They were trading. They were trading vessels, and they. One of the interesting things is that they were Phoenician essentially. The Phoenicians were the great sailors of the ancient world, and they controlled the Straits of Gibraltar. They had access to the Atlantic Ocean that nobody else had, because they controlled the only access. It's part of why the Romans had to go to war with them, is to gain access to get out of the Mediterranean. And they've been trading across the ocean for centuries, and those were some of the items they traded for. Was copper and furs and things like that. What they traded in return were finished works and tools and such. And the interesting thing is that the capital city of Carthage during this period was originally called Bursa, which means hide, because it was. There's a story about it, an ox hide being a major factor of the founding of it. It's in the book for more details. But they made little ingots that were plates in the shape of an ox hide that had been found, and these were like bills of lading or inventories of the ship stuff written in Phoenician. And these would be major items for the native people who traded, and they would keep them and pass them on and use them as trade goods of bronze. They were nice bronze or brass.
Right.
And they would bury them in burial mounds.
Oberon, we've got Oberon. I
apparently
hate to
they
do
were
this.
found.
We've got to take a break. Please stand by. Exonation Oberon Zell is our special guest. OberonZell.com, and he's the author of History's Mysteries, available at Amazon.com. We'll be back as we wrap up this hour and tonight's show here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, on Classic 1220 and streaming at classic1220.ca.
Never seen a day great. Leaning on. Every day I get you magic bus to get on the bus that takes me to you. Magic bus. I'm so nervous I just sit and smile. Magic bus. House is only another mile.
Exonation Oberon Zell is our special guest this hour. His website is OberonZell.com, and he is the author of History's Mysteries, Turning Points That Changed Our World. It's available at Amazon.com. And I must tell you, Exonation, if I don't get 15 to 20 books a week here at our studios to review, and, if the book is interesting enough and I think that you, the Exonation, will be interested, we bring the guest on. But I'll tell you, and this is all honesty, this book, it beats them all. It really does. And Oberon, thank you so much for, number one, being on the show tonight, and number two, for bringing the other side of the story to your readers and to our listening audience. But here's my final small question for you for the night. Are you ready?
Go ahead.
Why do people have to lie about history? For example, you and I were talking about the Phoenicians, and coming over and trading over here in the Americas before Christopher Columbus was even thought of. And yet he's credited with the discovery of the Americas. And the funny part about that entire thing was he didn't discover the Americas. So why do we keep the lie alive?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I've been fascinated by this whole idea of what makes things believable or not to people. Why do people believe a big lie and refuse to believe a big truth, for example? What is it that makes lies so compelling that they are believed and repeated? And there's been speculations about that because we're dealing with that sort of stuff on the major political arena right now, where outrageous, stuff is believed by lots of people, really crazy stuff. So what does it take to get a truth to be as widely believed as a lie seems to be? And I guess it has to do with what people want to believe. And there's a certain allure in thinking that you have some secret knowledge and that you're in on something that other people don't know about. Maybe that's part of it. Or maybe people just don't like the world of truth. They want to believe in something that is so different that it sets them apart. I don't know. It's a great question. We need to know that.
And of course, this fuels the theory of, secret societies. What are secret societies really about? What secrets do they hold? And the more you place an emphasis on secrets, the more people that are drawn to its lure, and the more people that are drawn into the mystery or the misinformation or the lure, the longer that lie continues, or the cover-up continues, the conspiracy continues and grows and grows and grows. It's just like, the UFO conspiracy. Is it a conspiracy? Or what would happen if tomorrow Joe Biden called an international press conference and said, look, Everybody wants to know about the UFOs. I am going to tell you the God's honest truth, based on all the information we have collected over the years, going back to Kenneth Arnold and the Roswell incident as reported in 1947. Members of the world press, are you ready? Drum roll, please. The truth is, there are no UFOs. There are no aliens. We don't have any proof.
Right.
What would happen? Yeah.
I think, interestingly enough, I don't think anything would happen because the people who want to believe would not change their minds. They would not accept the dismissal, any more than the people who want to believe in the stolen election are going to be dissuaded by any revelation or truth that comes out. People are going to believe what they want to believe, and this includes bizarre and crazy conspiracy theories or religious stories. I mean, if you really look at the core beliefs of some of the great religions, there's pretty crazy stuff, I mean, the whole virgin birth story, for example, or, a lot of them. But people believe it because they have reasons for it. They want to believe it. And there's something to want to be say, I know something you don't know, nanner, nanner, nanner.
Right. Right.
And that's very appealing to people. I think we just have to shake our heads and let the children play, because they're going to anyway.
But how dangerous is this for a society as we go forward? We're not solving any issues. We're not teaching the proper values to the youth of today who are the leaders of tomorrow. So isn't it important that the real truth be found out, be investigated, and reported? Now, even if you do the investigation, and you find nothing, just be honest and say, we found nothing. Or if you find something, be honest and say, this is what we found. But to perpetuate lie after lie after lie after lie after lie, what are we accomplishing? In my opinion, nothing.
Well, I'm with you there, of course. That's why I write the books I write. This is why the Histories, Mysteries, and my bestiary of stories of magical and mystical creatures and all the rest of the stuff I write is about that. What is the truth that we can get out of here? And so I do the research, and I travel to places. I've traveled to many of the places that are in the book here that I talk about. I've got excerpts from my journals. I think we need to do serious investigation, and I think we have to go where the facts and the story lead us.
Right.
Because I think we do need to know what's really going on. Myself, but there are other people who are not going to want to know, and they certainly don't want to know if the truth contradicts what they want to believe. If they want to believe that their particular path is giving them salvation and a ticket to eternal paradise and or whatever it is,
right,
or political power or wealth or anything like that, or just, being able to say they know something other people don't know, they're going to stick with that. They're not going to change.
It's funny because I've had people on the show who are convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are no UFOs, there are no extraterrestrials, that it's all made up, it's all fantasy. And then I ask them, well, do you celebrate Christmas? Well, of course. Do you tell your children about Santa Claus coming down the chimney? Oh, yeah, of course. So
Exactly.
What's the difference between you saying that there are no UFOs and other people saying there are? If you yourself believe that, or you tell your children that there's a Santa Claus and he comes down the chimney and the rest of it. I find that there's a lot of double standards in life, and that maybe we should just go with the two that I believe in, the right and the wrong. When I was a police officer, we always said there were three sides to every story: his side, her side, and the truth.
I think you've got that one
Yeah.
there. Well, in ancient times, there was a set of criteria that were articulated that I think are pretty good, and that was the criteria of truth, beauty, and goodness. Is it true? Is it beautiful? Is it good? And that's how people chose to evaluate information. And I think those are pretty nice, all three of those qualities.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And I think that when you have legends like Christmas, Easter, or other holidays that actually teach you lessons about life, that are positive lessons, there's no harm in that, in my opinion. Because when you look at Christmas, everybody at Christmas dons this Christmas spirit, and if I could only can that or bottle that, I would be the richest person in the world, even if I sold it for $1 a bottle, because we all need that Christmas spirit.
Well, I do the Santa Claus thing at Christmas time, and and I got the suit and I got the hat and I've got the beard and all that stuff, and I have to say I really believe in Santa Claus. There is a powerful spirit that just simply goes out into the world at that time, and it inhabits people. It kind of takes over.
It does.
Take it on.
That's the Christmas
and
spirit.
The spirit of generosity and joy and kindness and love of children. And the kids pick up on it, and the adults do too. I mean, I go out there, not just doing a thing in a department store, but just on the street. In December, people say, "Are you Santa Claus? Can I get my picture with you?" That kind of stuff. It's wonderful.
So why can't we have the same spirit all year long? That's what I don't understand.
Well, I've discovered a little secret about that.
Oh?
I got myself, me and my lady, we got ourselves a couple of steampunk hats. Really nice hats with the goggles on them and stuff. Mm-hmm. And we wear them when we go out. And people love it. People say, "I love your hat," and they smile and they laugh and they come up and they want to talk to us and joke with us, and they go away, a little higher and a little happier than they were before. So we've come to think of these as our magic hats.
I guess all we need to do is find something that brings the magic out in people all year long. And I guess that's what religions try to do, religious philosophies try to do. And some are more successful than others. But because of people like you, and the work that you do and your love for what you do, I'm sure one day that the answer will be forthwith. And another book shall be born.
Ah, well, and so shall it be. I keep working on them. I've got a whole list of books to write.
Oberon,
and you keep doing what you're doing, Rob.
Well, I intend to. And the sad part is that we don't have enough time to do what I'd really like to do each and every night. But I do thank you very much, Oberon, for everything you do. Congratulations on a great book. And Exonation, if you'd like to get a copy of History's Mysteries, it's available on Amazon.com. And also, if you'd like to visit Oberon's website, www.oberonzell.com. Oberon, until next time we meet, my friend, take care of yourself, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Rob, and you too.
Take care, my
Blessings.
good friend. Blessings to you as well. And that's it for tonight, Exonation. I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. And we're here Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. until midnight on your hometown radio, Classic 1220. So until tomorrow night, my friends, always keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.